Jaafar was the founding president and founder of the United Malaysian National Organization (UMNO). Dato Onn Jaafar was born in February 12, 1895 in Batu Pahat, Johor, to Dato Jaafar bin Haji Mohamad, the first Menteri Besar of Johor. He was raised by Sultan Ibrahim Sultan Abu Bakar's son since childhood and was schooled in Malaysia before moving to England to further his education. Sultan Ibrahim adopted him and he spent time in the Johor Palace. Dato Onn Jaafar died in Johor Bahru on January 19, 1962. Dato Onn Jaafar is a Malayan political figure who was instrumental in the Merdeka Independence movement and the creation of the Federation of Malaya, the precursor of Malaysia. Dato Onn Jaafar was a Malay politician who led the opposition to a proposed union between the Malay Sultans in 1946. He resigned from the United Malaysian National Organization (UMNO) in 1951 after the organization rejected his suggestion that membership be available to people of all races. Tunku Abdul Rahman, Malaysia's subsequent Prime Minister, took his position and Dato Onn Jaafar was pushed out of Malayan politics.
Chapter 1. Background of family. Who is Dato Onn Jaafar? Dato Onn Jaafar was born in 1895 in Bukit Gambir, Jalan Gertak Merah, Johor Bahru. He was the third of 7 sons and 7 daughters. His father, named Dato Jaafar bin Haji Mohamad, was the first Menteri Besar of Johor during the reign of Sultan Ibrahim and the founder of the Johor government administrative system. His father was of Bugis descent and come from Dai. His mother was named Hanim Rugayah, who is of Turkish descent and come from the Near East. Dato Onn Jaafar is a descendant of the Bendahara Paduka Raja Johor and the Bendahara Kerajaan Malacca. Because he was descended from the courtiers, he had the privilege of being a relative of the king. Not only that, Dato Onn Jaafar was adopted and cared for by Sultan Ibrahim since he was 6 years old and has been accustomed to associating with the relative of the King of Johor since childhood. His family is one of the most influential families in Johor since the late 19th century and to this day. He had 15 brothers and sisters who are from the different fathers and different mothers. Dato Onn Jaafar also leader of organization that we call as United Malaysian National Organization (UMNO). In 19 January 1962, Dato Onn Jaafar breathed his last in Johor Bahru. Married life. Dato Onn Jaafar married for the first time to Cik Rafiah binti Abdullah, who was a Chinese woman, after adopted children of Dato Jaafar, his father, in 1911. As a result of living together with this first wife, 3 daughters were born. They were given the names Hawa, Rokiah, and Salehah. However, Rafiah died when their youngest child, Rafiah, was 10 days old. After the death of his first wife, he married Miss Jamilah binti Ottoman in 1950 and was blessed with a son named Azmir. For his third marriage, he married Sheikha and divorced in 1921. Dato Halimah was a beautiful widow when Dato Onn Jaafar married her in 1921. The marriage was blessed with 6 children, namely Tun Hussein, Garib, Major Jaafar, Tahir, Nurziah, and Nel. Dato Halimah's first husband was Muhammad, one of the Dato Onn Jaafar older brothers. After his wife and second wife leaving him with 4 young children, it was Dato Halimah who helped take care of her children. He and his wife never different between their own children, namely Abid and Abidin. They lived together until 41 years. Dato Onn Jaafar's attitude has always given full trust to his wife, especially in household affairs and taking care of children. Dato Onn Jaafar considered his wife not only as a friend in the marital relationship, but as the closest friend and companion where he can share everything. Dato Onn Jaafar as a father has succeeded in instilling the spirit of family, friendship, and community in the souls of his children, both boys and girls. He always looked cheerful when he was by the side of his children and wife. Dato Onn is convinced that the best way to form a child is by the way the parents themselves set a good example and provide practical guidance.
He studied English with an English woman who took care of him when he was an adopted child of Sultan Ibrahim. In 1903, he furthered his study at Alderbury Lodge School in Suffolk, England. Dato Onn Jaafar continued his study after returning home at the Malay College Kuala Kangsar. After graduation, he returned to Johor Bahru and served the Johor government. So, this is a picture of Maktab Melayu Kuala Kangsar that Dato Onn Jaafar had studied.
Dato Onn Jaafar started to venture into field of journalism starting from his interests and abilities. He was interested to contribute an article to the Syarikat Akhbar Percetakan Singapura and was offered a permanent position in 1930. Apart from that, he also criticized the Sultan Johor by forcing the Askar Timbalan Setia to do labour work such as forced labour for the benefit of the Sultan private plantation. With his courage, other newspapers also received response and widespread coverage. Dato Onn Jaafar was also member of Majlis Mesyuarat Kerajaan Johor and became a chief food control officer in Johor. Initially, Dato Onn Jaafar has served as district officer in British colonial administration but later resigned for objecting to colonial policy. On March in 1946, at the club of Sultan Sulaiman in Kuala Lumpur, Malay Congress want to oppose the Malayan Union was seen as a threat to the privileged position of the Malays and position of Sultan Melayu. Thus, the body set up to represent the Malays and Dato Onn was appointed as the first president. This is because he was active in the group of nationalist Malay. On October 1946, Dato Onn was appointed Menteri Besar of Johor. He resigned 3 years later because he wanted to focus on UMNO. The British government was forced to dissolve the Malayan Union and replaced by the Persekutuan Tanah Melayu. Official, UMNO managed to change the Malayan Union to the Persekutuan Tanah Melayu. Dato Onn Jaafar suggests the party membership is open all residents of Malaya regardless of race and the name of UMNO change to Pertubuhan Kebangsaan Penduduk Tanah Melayu Bersatu. However, the proposal was rejected. He resigned as UMNO President when in the persidangan Majlis Mesyuarat Agung ke-6. On August in 1951, Dato Onn established the Independent Malayan Party (IMP). However, the party did not have the support of the Malays. This is because he wanted to establish with the Parti Negara aiming to cooperate in the first general election in the Persekutuan Tanah Melayu in 1955. Unfortunately, the party failed and did not win any seat in the election. However, Dato Onn is still trying to get a place in politics. Finally, he managed to get a seat in the Parliament Kuala Terengganu Selatan in the general election in 1959 with the help of the PAS party.
Dato Onn Jaafar is the legend of the Malay races. He is a former Johor minister who is the founder and yang di-Pertuan Agong of UMNO. The first step was carried out by the man. He formed a United Malay National Organisation related to the Malay Party. When the British returned to Melayu, the Malayan Union government tried to eliminate the special privilege of the Melayu. Dato Onn Jaafar also actioned quickly to establish the Union Johor Malay that eventually success in unifying unity of the Malays in Melayu as a violation of British and Malayan Union. On January 2, Dato Onn Jaafar had written a letter to Utusan Melayu to hand over the people who used the Congress and established the UMNO. After that, Dato Onn Jaafar had established the Pan-Malayan Congress to reunite the Malayan Union. The Congress was held on 1 until 3 March 1946, but Dato Onn decided to resign from UMNO because many people had rejected his proposal that proposed to open membership to all races. But Dato Onn still did not give up and kept trying to bring together the different community in Malay and wants to make as United Malay UMNO. The establishment of UMNO also emphasized the economic development of the community. After leaving UMNO, Dato Onn Jaafar, who had been appointed by the British government as Minister of Home Affairs, was able to see into the country's administrative and political problems. He was accused of being a pro-British for sitting in the cabinet of the colonial governments, but later UMNO also allowed one of his representatives to accept a seat in the cabinet of colonial governments. Then Dato Onn was appointed manager of RIDA. Dato Onn was always fighting for the Melayu than other peoples by setting up a company and rural development authorities, or that's called of RIDA, now known as MARA, in mid-1950 in Kuala Lumpur.
For the next slide is about the Dato Onn Jaafar challenges. The first one of the challenges that Dato Onn Jaafar had faced is the Malayan Chinese Association 1948 to 1965. In 1948, only the Chinese in the three major cities of Malaya did not have a political or quasi-political organization interested in promoting their interests in the country. The United National Organization of Malaysia was established under the leadership of Dato Onn Jaafar to put pressure on Malaysia's opposition to the Malaysian alliance plan to weaken the Sudan and change the special status of Malays. After reaching this goal, all that is left is to work for the general welfare of the Malays and express their sincere complaints. The religious and ethnic division of the Indian community are reflected in the increase in the number of organizations claiming to speak on their behalf, even though the Malay Indian Parliament began to manage them in 1948 and attract others. However, although many major political parties in mainland China, including the Kuomintang and the Communist Party, have branches or corresponding institutions in the Malay Chinese community, the political power of the community is scattered and they have not made clear statements on the issues of concern. In general, this is especially evident when they are unable to organize an effective counter-attack against UMNO. The second challenge is about the political consensus. Immigrants want to participate in the struggle for independence to ensure their future in Malaya. Party leaders recognize the importance of reaching consensus. For Malaya's independence, political cooperation must be prudent. For Malayan harmony, it must take it seriously and do the best. On the basis of racial political tolerance, political leaders of different levels began to pursue this lofty goal. At that time, the diversity of Malays of different races such as Malays, Chinese, Indians, Ibans, Hadazan, Bajau, Dayaks, caused Malaysian political parties to be racist based on this struggle. After World War II, until Malaya gained independence, Malays and non-Malays sought political integration in the form of political cooperation between Pusat Tenaga Rakyat, Putra and countries. In 1947, the Malaysian Joint Action Community AMCJA AHMAD 2000 and the Malayan Chinese Association MCA united the Malay National Organisation UMNO, followed by the Malay Indian Parliament MIC established in 1949. The third second on the Dato Onn Jaafar challenges is the Malayan election of 1959. There is a few consensus that Onn contributed notably to the increase and improvement of the independence motion. Some students discuss with him as pengasas kemerdekaan, the initiator of independence. While he became now no longer by myself, we then cite the mass revolt orchestrated with aid of using numerous leaders in opposition to the Malayan Union Constitution. Its function within cite the motion became really dominant. Dato Onn Jaafar, in a field a rebellion of his age and a number of his talk had been forcibly attached in advance of time. He thought as much as what he felt became an exploitative colonial regime that became protecting directly to its manage over Malaya. He additionally spoke out in opposition to what he perceived as thoughtless palace politics in his domestic kingdom of Johor, and movement that might be deemed uncommon in conventional Malay society. In the second one instance, he became pressured into exile for a long of time, that is 1927 to 1936 in Singapore. The new Smart Party was founded on May 11 in Johor Bahru and Onn Jaafar was elected its chairman. Due to a violent protest by the Malays, the British started negotiation with Smart leaders in June 1946 to find an acceptable solution plan to solve their opposition to the Malay Union. The result of this negotiation was the signing of the Malay Federation Agreement in 1948. After the signing of the Malay Federation Agreement in 1948, Onn's political stance seemed to have changed from a narrow public stance to a more inclusive approach. This method is still the basis of Onn's political struggle. He continued to encourage Malaysians to look at it with a broader political perspective.
Chapter 6 is about the retirement and the death of Dato Onn bin Dato Jaafar. Retirement. After leaving UMNO, Dato Onn Jaafar decided to form a new political party named as Independence of Malaya Party (IMP). However, the party did not receive a good response from the Malayans. He then decided to dissolve the IMP and form a new political party named as Parti Negara. However, it is still not enough to win the heart of Malay community and he lost the elections. Finally, on 1959, after the general election, he decided to step down and retire from the politics. The death of Dato Onn Jaafar. 3 years after his retirement, Dato Onn Jaafar died at the age of 67 on 19 January 1962. The cause of his death due to heart disease at the Officers' Ward General Hospital, Johor Bahru. He then was buried next to his father's grave, Dato Jaafar Haji Mohamad. His grave has been located at MARDHIAH Royal Mausoleum at Johor Bahru.
In conclusion, Dato Sir Onn bin Dato Jaafar, February 12, 1895 to January 1962, was a Malay politician who served in Johor in Malaya, now Malaysia, from 1947 to 1950, the 7th Minister. From his establishment in 1946 to his retirement in 1951, he was also the founder and first chairman of the Malay National Unity Organization UMNO and was responsible for the social and economic well-being of Malaysians through the creation of the Industrial Development Office, Rural Areas (RIDA). His son is the third and former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Hussein Ong. His grandson is the current Minister of Foreign Affairs, Shamuddin Hussein, and his great-grandson is the current legislature of Layang Long member on Hafiz Ghazi. From this finding aids, we can advance the knowledge about Dato Onn Jaafar.